Welcome back! In this week's episode, Wayne and Elly chat about the What You Can Be Paid For section of the Ikigai model and dip into your vocation. Let's go!
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what can you be paid for? And this comes down to, this is where it overlaps with what you're good at, as I mentioned, which becomes your profession, and then the other part is that your vocation. So, if you achieve this, you can be comfortable, but you have a feeling of emptiness. So you can do the job because you're qualified, and it's your vocation. So it's something you find purpose in. Service is a key one of those. So a nurse, for example, in the NHS doesn't get paid a lot, but it's their vocation. They love doing it. They love caring for people. They love serving the community. So that's their vocation, and it's also their profession. But I can imagine a few of them come home feeling a bit empty in the evenings, because they put all that out there. So I think, just as an example, can be quite useful to do that. But what was your curious, Elly? What was your job title in the Navy?
I was a training manager, so schooling in the Navy.
Yeah,
And I mean, roles and responsibilities really diverse, and all sorts of different aspects along the way. Everything from developing the training through to delivery, through to governing and assuring, all sorts of different things. And actually pretty translatable to outside. So if we look kind of back at, what you're good at with the profession, what you can be paid for, absolutely can be paid for really similar roles outside, particularly with a lot of the additional qualifications. And that's one thing the military is great at, right? Your qualifications that you can get with it, you can easily transfer across.
yeah,
Was it something that I wanted to do on the outside? That was the big question. Learning development, that kind of thing. Actually, I was like, I'm not going to name companies at all in any of this, but like when I was first looking to leave, and I was like, well, I've got all this skill set. This is the skill set that I've developed. This is what I'm theoretically good at. Let's look for translating that to outside. And I assumed, and this is a huge thing throughout the whole of my process, I'm a rose tinted kind of girl, and I'm like, oh yeah, this will be great. The rose tinted glasses. I assumed that large organizations invest a lot in L&D. So when I was looking in the local area for that kind of skill set, I was like, oh yeah, learning development outside, huge, lots and lots of money's in that. And actually, it's not the case. It's almost, the military
yeah,
is almost better at it than a lot of, yes, you assume corporate companies have
yeah,
more money to spend on it. They've got more money. They're still not necessarily willing to spend on it. The military really value L&D and personal development much more than I was aware of, moving on to the outside. So
yeah,
when it came to that, what can you be paid for? If we go back to what we said earlier about setting your absolute bare minimum of a salary, actually, the two didn't
yeah,
equate. And this is by no way means those that are listening kind of
yeah,
a scaremongering exercise at all, but it's really looking at that I needed this much, and companies, the roles that I would do within companies weren't meeting it. And that was quite an eye-opener for me. And so I would say subconsciously, I definitely
yeah,
did the Ikigai of good at, paid for piece when doing kind of the LinkedIn scrolling of you get paid much for this, paid for salary for this, was very, very interesting. And
yeah.
going back to your example of kind of nurses and the vocation piece, I just wasn't passionate enough about those roles to take the hit on the pay,
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah. This is interesting because when I left, I took a 4 grand pay cut from a corporal. I went down to, I think, £28,000 a year, for the first probation period of like 6 months or 3 months, whatever it was. After 3 months, I think they put it up to 30. But I was doing, like I said, I was doing more days away with that job than I ever did with the military. And I looked around at certain other jobs, so I was like, okay, I did actually, I forgot I mentioned, I did a job in the food industry for 6 months, and left, left that company, came back and had a pay rise. So a quick way to get a pay rise sometimes, but not always the most kind of sensible route.
Risk appetite?
But So like when I look at that, for example, like my profession and my vocation, like I'm a person of service. I like to help other people. I like to serve. This is why I do this collective leader role. This is why I help service leaders, CV, networking, LinkedIn stuff. I'm a person of service, and I've discovered that about myself throughout my journey. And if I think about back to when I decided to leave, if I was at this section of the Ikigai model, my profession, I really liked it. I was good at it, and it was my vocation. I love serving. I love serving my community and my country, although it sounds fairly cheesy. But like that gave me real purpose, and I was getting paid for it. I actually took a pay cut to come away from that, which looking back doesn't make sense to me. Not just because I took a pay cut, but because I was doing something I enjoyed. I was good at it as a profession, and it was also my vocation. So I probably wouldn't, if I was just this section alone, I wouldn't have left. So
You wouldn't have left
this
the
is
army.
this is why I probably, if it was just this section alone, I probably wouldn't have left the military, because it was my profession, it was my vocation. It was just my external, like say, personal circumstances that encouraged that. So it's always good therapy sessions, these types of conversations, make you reflect and think back yourself. But yeah, so I mean, that's something that's really important. I think if I didn't want to serve anymore, and maybe that's part of it. If I was in that mindset of like, I don't like engineering while I was in the army, but I like serving people, that's if I don't have the two overlap in there, that's gonna make me feel empty. And I can certainly speak for my wife, who was a paediatric nurse in the NHS, and she went back after maternity leave, and her vocation changed. Her vocation was to be a mum. She really wanted to do that, and that was she was really good at it as well. So she was professional and passionate about being a mum. So those two start to implement and change her circumstances. So her vocation became a mum, and she was good at it. It kind of become a profession, because now she's a stay-at-home mum. She works for me every now and then as well, but that's it. So yeah, so that is I think the Ikigai the second part of it is profession. So what you can you be paid for? It's generally your profession, and if it should be your vocation, to kind of get to that Ikigai center of reason for being, and the reason for the purpose behind everything you do. So yeah, we'll pass it there, and we'll move on to the next bit.
Yeah.
Happy.
Thanks for watching. Next week, Wayne and Elly unpack the biggest aspects of Ikigai, the vocation versus profession, and the vocation versus mission sections. See you then!